Okay, so this morning's video is not going to be too long because I'm going to also upload a video this Saturday afternoon, probably after 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, sometime, whatever. Listen, when I was a kid growing up, this was a very common question. It was sort of like a little joke amongst the kids. For example, which weighs more, 2,000 pounds of brick or 1 ton of paper? Huh? Yeah, that was like a cute little running joke. All right. 2,000 pounds of brick or 1 ton of paper. All right. Well, food for thought for some, right? The other question, is it true that a penny saved is a penny earned? As time goes by, because I have thrown this question out many times on a poll, I haven't done a poll in a little while, and that's a reminder for me to do some more polls in a not so distant future. But I'm thinking to myself, how many times did I throw out on a poll? Would you rather earn extra money by having a side hustle, or do you prefer to cut back? And inevitably came back the answer, they rather cut back. Sometimes some folks say both. Idealistically, if a person could do it, probably, I would say probably a little bit of both is my answer. But to me, there is no wrong answer, because the more I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, let's get back to the question. Is it true that a penny saved is actually a penny earned? And the answer is, ta-da, yes, it is. Yes, it is, because you're going to have the same earning power with whatever amount that you save. For example, let's say that you on purpose, you, myself, or anyone listening, on purpose, intentionally chose not to spend or cut back on $500 of value, okay, in cash. Well, let's say some time went by. That's still $500 in value, right? Let's say that a person decided to get up every day for a week and do some sort of a side hustle, and they walk away with $500. But that $500 is going to, part of it's going to go to gas for the car, perhaps childcare, other related expenses to working. You see where I'm going with this? So in some cases, a person is actually better off literally, seriously cutting back, because a lot of us, for some reason or another, we fall into, I don't know, puffery shopping. What's the word I'm looking for? Stuff that, they're cute. I don't know, frou-frou stuff, whatever. But to me, now remember, and I do recognize everyone is different. I do recognize everyone age is different and stuff like that. For me, like frou-frou, fluffery kind of stuff may not mean that much to me, but that doesn't mean it's wrong if it means a lot to someone else. The only time things get quote end the quote wrong is if people are skipping out on paying their basic essentials, and then they say, "But I don't have the money." Maybe the person does, because they're not examining their spending habits. You see where I'm going with this? So anything is possible, but it's all how you look at it. Like, let's get back to the original question, the goofy question about the 2,000 pounds of brick, okay, versus 2,000 pounds or 1 ton of paper. Obviously, it weighs the same. It's 2,000 pounds. A ton is 2,000 pounds. So it's kind of like, when you're a kid and you think about that, wait a minute, paper seems so much lighter than brick. But did you ever lift up a box of, like, for example, I'll call it typing paper. We used to call it back in the day, typing paper, okay? Like standard typing paper. If you pick up those boxes filled with like packages of that kind of paper, let me tell you, it's heavy. It's heavy. So I don't know. It's just all how you look at it. Some things may feel denser than others, but put it on a scale. For example, my father worked for that company, a National Biscuit, when they called it that, way back in the day. Okay. And then I know this because I remember this. He also was a post office worker. So he had the best of both worlds. I suppose he was always working, work, 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 work. That was daddy. God bless you, Dad. Miss you. But I remember when they changed part of the labeling on, for example, of a Nabisco product, and I don't get a dime for saying this. I'm just saying, not from Nabisco certainly, but that's what I'm referring to. But the boxes were labeled. They had to be labeled. This package is sold by weight, not by volume. That'd make that statement on the package. I believe this happened in the early or middle 60s. So being the daughter of Nabisco worker, I kind of remember that. But and I asked my father when I was reading the box of my then favorite cookie, chocolate snaps. But anyway, remember those? I don't know why certain cookies were discontinued. I am totally, absolutely clueless. Why did they discontinue those cookies? So anyway, so I would, read the box as a kid and say, what does this mean? This package is sold by weight, not by volume. Then my father explained, like if it's 16 ounces on the scale, it's 16 ounces on the scale, and that's what you're paying for, 16 ounces. Okay. Yeah, but this box feels less than the other box. It's still, if it's 16 ounces on the scale, you see where I'm going with this. Who remembers those cookies? I mean, I know that's not the most earth-shattering question on planet Earth, but anybody remember those cookies? They were absolutely amazing. I think Steve and I might consider a show like that when they need to talk to him about that on my channel. Maybe one day in the not so distant future, we could talk about memorable food, that vanished. But let's get back to this for a minute. I want to tell you a little story, which is kind of related, but not necessarily related. All right. So this is a true story of a person that was part of a church. Okay. And that person was an usher in the church. And I don't mean usher like the way some churches mean usher. Okay. This is like, I would say little letter small u usher. This person, was in another church where the ushers were called ushers that collected the basket, the donation. They would put the basket out at certain intervals during a service. Okay. And so in that capacity, this, older gentleman was an usher. He probably donated his time in that church for at least 30 or 40 years. I mean, it was amazing. He was always there. He was a kind man. He lived by himself. He never got married. Didn't have children. He had no family to speak of. And the only family he had was literally the folks in the church and the surrounding neighborhood, which thank God for neighbors and friends. Thank God for churches and things of that nature. I mean that. I really, really mean that. So this happened about, I don't know, 40 years ago. So pretty much almost all of my childhood, I remember that gentleman, the usher at the church. It's just like part of the furniture, part of the statues, part of the fixture, part of that church. He was ingrained. And he always donated his, time, very kind, loving man, and a good person. It was sad to report years ago he died by himself. He was elderly. He lived a nice long life. Okay. And everything was his church, his church, his church. And I really respect him for that. But he was still alone. He went home alone, spent holidays alone. I think perhaps, hopefully, the church may have offered him some church meals, or maybe he visited with some of the, neighbors and stuff on those days. I'm not quite sure exactly. But for the most part, he was alone. He was by himself. So one day he just didn't show up at the church. Okay. That's odd. He's always here, if not early. So sweet gentleman didn't show up. And of course, this alarmed, the church, other people that participated in helping in the community. So naturally they checked on him. They called, no answer, no answer. This got too weird. And another person that had the key to this gentleman's apartment. So he went to his unit and unfortunately discovered that, he was no longer. So, yeah, so that was like really, really sad. But they also found a note. He must not have been feeling too good or something. He left a note on or close to his bed, is what I heard or understood, that to please, if something happens to me, please open my mattress. What? Open your mattress? Who thinks about opening a mattress to someone? Nobody thinks of that. Why would anybody want to open a mattress? But it was his handwriting because everybody knew the gentleman. And so they church people came over and followed the instructions. You know what he did? He squirreled away a ton of cash and he placed it in the mattress. I mean, it was a ton of cash, okay? And he wanted all that money to go to the church because to him, his church was his life. I mean, every time I think about it, just like, oh, it just makes me, yeah, I'm welling up and, getting little baby tears in my eyes as I recall the story. So, yeah, there's some very special people. That $25,000, okay, it could have been earning interest in a real bank account. But, the gentleman had no family. He probably didn't want to afford a lawyer or legal things or draw up a will. That's what he left behind. And this was like about 40 years ago. So 40 years ago, $25,000 then, it's probably about the equivalent of about 50 now, is my guess. Just a rough guess. So you see, we go back to the 2,000 pounds of paper versus the 2,000 pounds of brick, 1 ton, versus penny saved is a penny earned. That gentleman earned his pay, okay? And of course, he had to meet his living expenses and all, like everyone else does, right? And but yet and still, it meant so much. He wanted to make darn sure, Tootin, that money went to his church. It's interesting the things people do with great intention. How much money can you save? I'm not saying tell me. That's none of my business. No, no, no. In fact, don't tell me. But I just hope and pray that everybody recognizes their own capabilities. So I just wanted to share that story and that food for thought. And I do tend to agree that a penny saved is truly a penny earned. Come back in the afternoon at some point for another video. I really appreciate every single one of you.